Greetings. I heard a talk years ago by one of the presidents, talk about titles, of the Watchtower Society, Nathan Knorr, who was a businessman. And the talk he gave was actually very good. Surprise, surprise. It was called Wholesome Speech, based on the book of letter of Titus, Paul's letter to Titus, which follows Timothy. And Nathan Knorr expressed his concern about young men in their 20s and 30s being appointed as elders. Isn't that interesting? And he mentioned about they should be aged men with experience of life. And I related very much to that talk. Not everything Jehovah's Witnesses say is wrong. Unfortunately, they are very wrong on the crucial things, especially when it comes to Jesus Christ's deity. Anyway, Nathan Knorr said about elders in congregation should be men with experience. I remember when my beloved brother-in-law Mark Latham resigned before me from this cult of Jehovah's Witnesses. Two elders came round who were young men in their 30s, and they said, oh, the Watchtower never made false predictions about 1975. I thought, get real. I was there. I came into this cult in 1974, when 1975 was championed. Circuit overseers gave talks on this. There was a book, a red book, which I loved at the time, based on the Jubilee theory. Life everlasting and freedom of the sons of God, which you can't get anymore. The demon-inspired Frederick Franz composed that. But this video is about Titus. A very powerful, short letter. I'm going to use the Bible I used for 38 years, the New World Translation. Strange title for a Bible. Anyway, now Paul starts off, a slave of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ. And he goes on to say in verse 10, there are many profitless talkers, and notice this point here, deceivers of the mind. Verse 11, Paul says to Titus, it is necessary to shut the mouths of these, as these very men keep on subverting entire households by teaching things they ought not. Now notice this point here. For the sake of dishonest gain. Ring a few bells? Governing body? Right. Let's go on a bit to Titus. And we'll look at where are we? Yeah. Chapter 3. Titus. Very short letter. Continue reminding them to be in subjection and be obedient to governments and authorities as rulers. The Watchtower were pleaded with in Australia to conform to the paedophile rules. They didn't comply, and they're still not complying in Australia. Go on to Silent Land's website and you'll see that. They've been told to award Candice Conti in California $28 million. Are they complying? No. They're not being obedient. They're going to contest it. More for them. Titus 3 verse 2. Remind them to speak injuriously of no one. Now let's focus on that. To speak injuriously of no one. What do they call people like me, who've had like nearly 40 years in this cult and now I'm a Christian, born again? They call me apostate, antichrist, evil slave. Openly. To such an extent that my family disown me. So they are speaking injuriously. Verse 3, chapter 3 of Titus. For even we were once senseless. They still are senseless. They don't act as slaves. They call themselves the faithful and discreet slave, but they hold dominion or control over their minions of millions. Get that point? They're minions of millions of ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses. The letter of Titus is marvellous. And let's look at verse 9 of chapter 3. Shun foolish questionings and strifes. As for a man that promotes a sect, reject him after a first and second admonition. What are Jehovah's Witnesses? They are a sect, S-E-C-T. Why do people support a false prophet? One reason, I think, because they've got friends and family members and they're afraid. They have fear of man before love of God. The ancient prophets of old, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Elijah, Elisha, did not fear men. We have to stand against our emotions and put the word of God and truth before two things: ourselves and our connections, whether they be family or friends. Notice what Paul said to Titus: we must shut the mouths of these people, because they're subverting entire households. Jehovah's Witnesses, through their elder arrangement, break up families, and yet, this is a big yet, they've got the audacity to knock on doors on a weekend, waking people up who are like blurry-eyed, with a watchtower, the secret of family happiness. And they made a book about this, green colour, the secret of family happiness. They break up families. Read the letter of Titus in your own Bible, whichever translation, and you will see the Lord speak to you as clear as daylight.